As the year comes to an end, a lot of people are already shifting attention forward. They're thinking about what's next. They're making new plans, they're making new goals, and of course, they're looking forward to some new energy and a fresh start. But then almost no one is taught how to actually end a year. And that's why so many people walk into the new year still carrying the weight of the old one. So before we get ahead of ourselves, I think it'll be worth it slowing down for just a moment because for many people, 2025 is not ending the way they had hoped. Now, as 2025 comes to a close, there's this quiet feeling many people are not talking about. It's not dramatic, it's not failure, it doesn't look like it. It feels more like unfinished business. And it wasn't that you sat around doing nothing. No, you actually tried. You adjusted, you showed up in ways that don't actually get noticed. But then some way, somehow along the line, things slowed down. But then things didn't slow down enough for you to call it failure, but then just enough to feel unfinished. And there's this sense that the year didn't quite land the way you expected it. More like some effort didn't translate into progress. And if you're feeling like this right now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're just human. And of course, I feel you. Now, here's something we rarely acknowledge. A year doesn't end emotionally. It ends on the calendar. Now, here's what I mean. December 31st will come and go, but then the things you're harboring in your heart or the things you're harboring inside won't just reset magically. Now, the disappointments that you didn't process won't go away by themselves. The goals that you quietly abandoned will still be lingering in your thoughts, of course. And the versions of yourself you hoped you had grown into, but then you didn't, will be there too. And unfortunately, most people never sit with these things. They don't take time to think deeply about themselves to assess where they're at. They just move on. But then you see, you don't actually leave behind the things you don't acknowledge. You carry them with you, whether you're aware of this or not. By the end of the year, people are tired for different reasons. Some are tired from pushing too hard, some are tired from feeling stuck, and others are tired from pretending this year was fine when clearly it wasn't. And then there were moments you thought would bring you the change you had longed for. Moments like a key decision, could have been a plan, or even a season. And when things didn't pan out the way you had wanted, you didn't make a big deal out of it. You just kind of swallowed it, and you'd realize that this is how emotional weights build. They build quietly and then gradually. Around this time of the year, there's this quiet pressure that shows up everywhere. I mean, you see it in conversations, you see it on social media, and even in our own heads. Now, people would say things like, be grateful. It could have been worse. Celebrate your wins. Focus on the positives. At least you're alive. And sometimes people would say that others have had it harder. Now, truth be told, none of that is wrong. But then it can make you feel like you're not allowed to admit the truth that some things just didn't work out. The truth that you tried and it still didn't land. The truth that you showed up, but then the year didn't meet you halfway. And then you start telling yourself, I shouldn't complain. I should be thankful. And yes, gratitude matters. But then forced positivity doesn't heal anything. It just teaches you to ignore the signals. I mean, you can be grateful and still feel disappointed. You can appreciate life and still admit that, something felt missing this year. And it's all right. Because really, closure doesn't come from pretending this year was great or forcing yourself to see only the good sides of this year. It comes from being honest with yourself and being honest about what a year this was. When you don't give yourself that honesty, you don't really give yourself the opportunity to move on. You just carry the weight quietly, and it will show up later in some form of pressure. And you'll feel the need to rush through many things. And there's also this strange feeling of being behind even before the new year starts, like you don't have an edge to even compete in the first place. That's why so many people enter January feeling already tired, not because they lack motivation, no, but then because they never give themselves the proper ending. And when you end a thing well, you give yourself a clean slate to start the next thing well, or even better. Now, you need to understand that ending a year properly is not about judging yourself. Closure doesn't mean you have to fix everything. It doesn't mean turning your year into some form of a lesson, or you have to wrap up the year very neatly and all that. No. It's about identifying things clearly, identifying things that mattered more than you expected, things that drained you, things that didn't work out, things that looked good on paper but then didn't feel quite right. You could have identified some seasons that changed you, even if you didn't notice them at the time. No drama, no self-attack, just clarity. And you don't owe anyone any summary of your year. You just owe yourself some honesty and, of course, truth. And when you're able to identify what went wrong, then that thing is no more hidden because it's been exposed, and whatever is exposed loosens its grip on you. Thinking about it, most people skip closure because it can feel quite slow sometimes. And of course, there's pressure to move forward. And there's also the pressure to be optimistic and ready for what's next. But then skipping closure doesn't make you stronger in any way. It only makes you heavier from the weights you're still carrying. And you don't want to start the new year already tired, already feeling behind, and already questioning yourself and doubting yourself. Now, you need to close up this year properly, because if you don't, the new year will start on the calendar all right. But then for you, you still wouldn't have started a new year. You would have just extended the old one last year, 2025. 2025 was a chapter, but then it wasn't a verdict on your potential. It wasn't proof that you failed at anything. It wasn't evidence that you're behind in life. I mean, we need to come to terms with the fact that some years are more about building and sowing, others are about learning and growing, and some years are more about unlearning and relearning. 2025 has been quieter and seemed uneventful than you may have planned. I mean, that's true for some people. And it may have even been a year where there was a lot of confusion, but then that doesn't make it useless. Now, before 2025 ends, I need you to take a moment to acknowledge one or two things. I mean, just a few things. Now, think of something that you carried this year that you don't want to drag into the new year. You don't need to solve everything tonight, and you don't need a plan yet. You just need to name that thing. And that alone lightens the load more than a lot of people would realize. Because when you think about it, closure is simple, but then it's not as easy as it seems. I mean, it sounds more like this year gave me what it gave me. And then you have to let yourself stop carrying that weight. Not with anger, not with regret, but then with acceptance that you did what you could, because what you acknowledge, that you can release. And what you release can't cling on to you into the new year or even into your future. The new year doesn't need you to be brand new. It just needs you to arrive a little lighter. Now, in the next video, we're not talking about resolutions or big goals. We're talking about how to enter the new year without pressure, without rushing, and without repeating the same emotional patterns you experienced this year. Because how you enter a year shapes how it unfolds. Now, if this video felt like I put words to something you've been carrying quietly, then this channel is for you. Here, it's not about hype. It's about clarity. It's about alignment and, of course, living deliberately in a very noisy world. I'm Desmond Kafui, and be kind to subscribe, and let's take the next step together. I'll see you in the next video.